Well, welcome to this episode of InfoSec Real. We are delighted to be joined again by Mike Jones. Mike, we really enjoyed your episode and the insights that you gave us last time that you came on the show. Really pleased that you're able to take more time out to speak to us. And we've got lots again to cover. Loads of stuff has happened in the industry since we've last spoke. And also, to be fair, didn't get nearly as enough time as what is necessary to talk about your kind of personal career history, InfoSec relationship, etc. So loads more for us to dive into, I guess. So where do we? Well, first, I know where we can start. Is let's talk about the haunted hacker movement because you've been
Yeah.
getting some awesome traction, right?
Yeah, it's been crazy. So we started the podcast. Me and my roommate, we were sitting at the bar one night and said, we should get more info out there because I only do talks maybe once or twice a month, and it's not every month. And there's a lot of people that still have questions, and I thought I would give them a platform to discuss it live and give people a chance to have one-on-one time. Um, and I think our heaviest traffic so far was 2 episodes ago. We had like 100 people online. Um, so it grew really quick, and it went from being like the Haunted Hacker podcast to it's now becoming kind of like the Haunted. So people all over the world are kind of like pitching in and doing their part, which is really strange. It's like I compare it to what happened with Anonymous. So we had an idea, and that idea just kind of took its own form. So that's kind of what happened here, and it's shocking. It's really shocking.
Yeah, I think it's really cool what you've done. You've changed the podcast into a movement or into a big community, and I really like the way. I mean, it's definitely you've got some courage to do live podcasts. I think we toyed with doing it live, and I just thought, no, we make too many mistakes to do that.
It's about mistakes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're all real, we're all people. I try to keep it as genuine as possible.
Yeah. But I really enjoy it. I do enjoy the way you've done it and the community aspect and the question and answers at the end. And I think it's a really cool thing you're doing, and it's growing and growing. And the thumbprint movement or the fingerprint movement, as we've seen, if you've seen it on LinkedIn recently, I think that looks really cool. I think it's a really good thing you're doing. So yeah, I applaud you for it, definitely.
Cool. I appreciate the support.
And you've got a store as well, right? So
Yeah.
I
A
saw the
store
hoodies.
popped up last night. Hoodies and pandemic masks and all kinds of stuff.
I saw the baby grow.
Yeah.
I thought about buying the baby grow. But yeah, no, it's cool. Getting this. Go on. Sorry.
What's the kind of vision then for it? Where do you see the runway with what you started?
I really don't have a vision for it, really. To me, it was just getting closer to the people that had questions and giving them, airtime and giving them a platform where they could voice their opinions and we could discuss stuff. But like I said, it's kind of taken on its own form. And, eventually I'm going to kind of back away from it and let it go, let them take it wherever they want to take it. So we have probably about 5 people that are participating in like the organization of the podcast, the invites, all that stuff. So I just get content together and they help me get it online. That's it.
That's awesome. It's funny because when I think about it, and I guess going back to our original conversation, something which we touched upon with Asperger's, and I know we talked about, when you were in the military and you were in the kind of cell with, 2 or 3 other people, like-minded, heads down, buried in threat intelligence, all that kind of good stuff. Whereas here, this almost seems like the polar opposite, right? You're so open, you're engaging with the whole world about InfoSec, about what goes on in a landscape, about hacking, all the rest of it. It's almost polar opposites.
It is, but I'll tell you what helps, and it helps a lot, is being here in this room and not. To me, it's almost like a disconnect from reality, right? You have the people on the screen, you can hear their voices, but I can look away for a second and I'm back in my comfort zone. So it's not difficult for me here. In person at conferences, it's a little bit more intense, but I've learned a lot of coping mechanisms. I wear noise canceling headphones, Bluetooth, to walk around the conference getting ready. And what people don't know is 9 times out of 10, there's no music playing on his headphones. I wear them so that people won't talk to me.
Yeah.
I do that with my wife. Yeah.
Don't tell her that.
She doesn't listen to this. There's no danger. So.
No, I think that's really interesting, that the way you've framed it, of you're there, sat in the room, but there's still a social aspect behind it. You know, you post a lot on LinkedIn, you have a lot of engagement, you conversate with people, you know, and I think for a lot of people that is really difficult, especially someone with Asperger's. I think it's really commendable to be able to even push through that, and something you might find uncomfortable, but still doing it because you want to give back. I feel like you from the last recording, you know, you've lived such an explosive life, and lot has gone on in a very short time, and now it's let's give back, let's feed out the information, and you've got lots of information to give still to this day. So I think it's you know, let's keep exploring that, definitely.
Yeah, I try to not only, you know, have a guest on and do a talk and answer questions, but I try to get together an exploit or something simple that, you know, people can learn from, new people coming into industry. It's nothing advanced. Just to, you know, push people along the way and encourage them to do, you know, what we do on a day-to-day basis.
What do you find the kind of common questions are then that you're being asked? What are the kind of common themes that people really want to dive into with you?
I find that a lot of people want to get into the psychology of it all. You know, what makes people do the things that they do. I had a guest on last episode, and it was called Dark Minds. And so we talked a little bit about psychology and how people interact on the internet and the way people get approached and groomed, and what makes a hacker do the things that he or she does. You know, there's a lot that plays into our environment, because I think that the IT industry and InfoSec especially, it's a different breed of people. And I don't know exactly what makes us that way. But there's such like bright and sharp minds in our industry, and there's always a story behind it. And I think that's important to get that story out. Not only my story, but I love hearing other people's stories as well, hearing where they came from and what made them who they are today. Because everybody can contribute something, you know, even if they're newcomers. I learn a lot just from hearing people's stories about how they got into the industry and what's happened to them since. Because our industry can be very cutthroat, and there are some dark people still on the internet that, you know, even on LinkedIn, that approach people and can be really shady.
What kind of stuff do you see on LinkedIn then, like that? What kind of shady stuff goes on?
Oh man!
It's a loaded question, because Ashley and I, we trade screenshots of DMs that we get on LinkedIn for some very weird characters, right? Absolutely. And we often wonder, where the fuck is this coming from? So
I get all kinds of stuff. Last week, actually the day of the bombing, I got several people who messaged me and said, "Be careful." And I didn't know to take it as a threat or a warning or just nonsense, right? One lady even went into the depth of telling me where she was from, and that she was doing the see something, say something thing for Trump, and that she was like ultra religious, like fanatical religious. And I went back to look at that conversation like literally 2 minutes afterwards, and she had deleted her profile, like it didn't exist. So there's that. You know, I get, you know, people approaching me to say, "Hey, can you hack this account for me?" Or, "I've lost my password. Can you help me get it back?"
All classic.
Yeah. And I've had people like, I had one, I guess it was a month ago, foreign intelligence approached me and want me to try to get into some banks for them. And that actually got turned over to the district attorney in Manhattan. So it's a number of things. And what I found too with like females, I've heard stories from them that they get approached by men who want to help, or, you know, talk business or whatever, with an ulterior motive. And that seems to be pretty common. And I think that goes back to the fact that, you know, up until, you know, the past 10 years or so, there weren't a lot of females in our industry. And now that we're starting to see more of that, you start seeing the creeps come out. So
you mean ulterior motive, like sex stuff, as opposed to
yeah,
like hacking stuff?
yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What I find on LinkedIn, and I've seen loads of other people post this, is fake profiles. I loads and loads of bot profiles, and they're always, very attractive females posing as, oh yeah, we can help you with training, or that's the one I always get is, do you want to pass this certification in 3-4 days? Come to this link. I get that all the time, and it's just delete. And they're always from the same region. And this is no xenophobia, but 9 times out of 10, the profile's from India.
Yeah, absolutely. I get them all the time. Which search are you looking for? And I always tell them I'm not looking for any certs, and then they disappear. So yeah, but I mean that's pretty accurate. You get those, and then I get a lot of people that want to do like influencing, like social influencing or whatever, like let me help you build your brand or whatever. And it's like spam. It's worse than spam actually.
But then I guess, so go back to the profile, or was it the female that reached out to you and was like, be careful, and the profile disappeared and stuff? Was that, you think, related to the Nashville AT&T bombing?
I'm not quite sure. That day was pretty strange. I woke up so I live with my roommate. My roommate was off with his girlfriend for Christmas, and it was just me and the dogs. And I wake up to hearing about an explosion 3 hours away from here. And I have friends who live in Nashville, and they were pretty shocked. But I went and did some digging on the internet, on the dark web and some other places, and I found an article from June of this year that the Tennessee, I think they call it the Tennessean newspaper. There was an ad taken out saying there was going to be a nuclear bomb go off in Nashville the next month, and it was in protest of Christianity, and it was going to be done by Islamic radicals. Well, it didn't go off, and come to find out, there's an uber religious group called Future for America that actually bought the space. It was a full page ad in that paper, and somehow it got through the editors and hit the paper. So I was thinking, maybe it was something religious, but it just didn't fit any of the molds. It's probably the most confusing attack I've ever seen.
Yeah, I agree. There's no sense behind it.
No.
Even the 5G conspiracy stuff, it still doesn't make any sense.
No, I think that conspiracy theory started over in the UK actually, when they put up the
that doesn't surprise me.
5G towers.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why we're so nervous about it. I mean, even where I live here, our 5G towers are shaped like trees.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even know what one looks like. How the fuck do you know what a 5G tower looks like?
Well,
the only reason I know it's a 5G tower because it was in the local thing that goes on, a little flyer thing that goes around all the houses, and they made a big statement on how they made this 5G tower. It was brown at the bottom and then green at the top, so it looked like a tree. But I don't get it. I honestly don't understand. So if I don't get why the conspiracy theories are where they are now, but I think the problem is people don't actually understand what is happening, and it's the old theory of you're scared of what you don't know, and because they don't understand it, they're scared of it and will fear it and make it our enemy.
And it just happened to come out at the same time the pandemic hit too. So people are trying to blame the pandemic on 5G, and it's just
I mean, 3GPP have been looking at the 5G standard for a very long time. So, and we've been testing 5G. I think 5G was tested in O2 Arena some time ago, and I want to say one of the football clubs, but I'm not a football person, so I'm not going to. I'm not going to bastardize anything there, but yeah, I mean. For me, it's not there. I don't believe the hype, and this bombing is very suspicious. It's very interesting, but we've had a very strange year, very strange 6 months. As you know, cyberspace has got weird, very, very weird, and very, very strange. You can't trust. You can never trust information before, but even now, you know,
Yeah.
just before this, my partner Jess was showing me a thing on TikTok, and I said to her, "Do you think that's true? Like what they're showing you there? Like just Google exactly what they're saying, and lo and behold, it's false. So it's it's that it's getting normal people to even validate the information that they're seeing because they trust everything. Yeah, no, she showed me saying, look at this,
Yeah.
and like that's not true. Like, don't believe the hype.
I get that
Not
all the time. People send me articles trying to. Go ahead.
I was just about to say, well, you can carry on, but not believing the hype. What? So there's lots going on now in cyberspace, and what's your opinion on everything that we're seeing at the moment?
Well, I mean, we have to take consideration too that there's always disinformation campaigns, not just by groups of people, but by governments and people like that, to get people to feel or think a certain way to benefit them. Especially in the U.S., that's always been an issue, and we say that we have unbiased media and free and free press, but it's really not true. I mean, we have very polar media outlets like you have Fox News, which is strictly Republican. You have CNN, which I call the Clinton News Network, which is purely Democratic, and they battle. And you see that on the internet now. It just flies a lot faster on the internet. I mean, look at SolarWinds and how that spread so quick. And there's all kinds of theories and very limited information when it first came out. But people were talking about, how should we protect ourselves? And I said, just do what the government said to do, just unplug and let it pass. Patch your stuff up and move on. But I also said that it's probably just the tip of the iceberg. And I had a lot of people arguing with me, oh no, you're a conspiracy theorist. And I said, no, I've seen these campaigns before. It's a lot farther reaching and probably a lot deeper than what we realize. And we may never know because some of that stuff is going to be considered national security. So they won't release some of that information. But yeah, I mean, the level of information flying around, whether it be right or wrong on the internet, I think has changed our environment and changed the way we think. Definitely changed the way that we socialize. I mean, here in the States, there's actually people who, if you voted for Trump, they won't speak to you, and vice versa. So it's very polarized.
I think I guess when we talk about disinformation and those kind of campaigns, I can relate to it and understand it as a layman, as a complete outsider, when we're talking about elections, the build up to the election, Trump, Biden, all the rest of it. But now it's kind of done. Like, what's the point in influencing how people feel and what they think and stuff like that? Is there more to these disinformation campaigns and this kind of propaganda than just election stuff?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at the economy around the world globally. People are hurting. There's no jobs, there's no money. People are being furloughed and getting a fraction of the money they should be getting. I mean, the president here just signed a stimulus package, and at first they were only going to give people $600 check. And how far does that get you? And he wouldn't sign it unless they raised it to 2,000. And he eventually got it. But when you look at that type of climate and you look at how people are hurting economically, physically, mentally, emotionally, it all plays a game, right? So they're more susceptible to those types of disinformation campaigns, whether it be, the Republicans did this, or this group is breaking into this stock exchange, et cetera. It's easier to get people to believe those things when they're living in an environment that we are now.
That's really interesting. One of the things I was speaking to one of our colleagues yesterday is one of the theories I had was, is the burning of the SolarWinds hack? So they've been, we don't know roughly, or you might know roughly how long they've been in the environment. Did they burn their tools now as a distraction for something else, because there is, if you look in cyber news, bleeping computer, this is the only thing in, everyone's talking about this and nothing else. And I think we spoke to Jack Resider, a couple of months ago, and he said he always focuses on the slow news, the news that no one is talking about. And at the moment, I think it's difficult to focus on that because everyone is so focused on SolarWinds, and if you move away from it, you're missing something, because every single day there's a new blog post, there's a new angle, someone's decrypted a little bit more of the code, there's a new theory. So I find it difficult to focus away from it. I have to focus on it because I'll become behind almost.
Mm. Well, and that news that we're seeing is just surface level news, right? So it's kind of post action and what we can see from the outside. There's very little news as to what's going on internally in some of these affected groups. And like I said before, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think it reaches further than what people realize. And as far as how long it's been going on, this has been going on for years. SolarWinds is just the door, but this target and this attack methodology, they've been working on it for years. APT 28 and 29 don't do things on a whim. They don't rush through things. They plan it strategically out like a military operation. And I mean, this cyber war has been going on since I've been around. It's nothing new. And like I said, the reach into the networks, I think we're going to find that they're probably still in those networks, and they've probably set up some sort of persistence that we haven't seen yet. And my fear is that they're into the critical infrastructure, because why would you go after government agencies? Why would you go after emails? And just that gets you nothing. They want to maintain a presence and put hooks into things that, if need be, they could hit the kill switch, and that would be it. It would cause devastation. And part of that goes back to when I was doing CI work for the FBI, and they had one of the groups was looking at a nuclear PLC. So the PLC helped control the nuclear reactor and some of the functions within that SCADA network. And that's the type of things that they do. They plan those things out intricately, and they know exactly what pieces they're after. So to say all of SolarWinds is compromised and that's the extent of it, I think that would be very, I guess, narcissistic to say, because I truly believe it goes deeper than that.
So I guess just a bit of a kind of recap, maybe for anyone who's been living under a rock in the last 30 days or so in the InfoSec space. So SolarWinds, this is like an IT management platform which is used probably in most organizations. And if it's not used in your organization, it's probably used in your vendors or your third parties or your IT management firms and stuff like that. But what we know, or are being told rather, is that they suffered a compromise of their Orion platform back in 2019, which is when I think it's being reported that there's snippets of code been inserted into a particular module which were benign but appear to be the kind of building blocks of what then appeared later in 2020. And this was detected by FireEye as a result of a breach that they suffered in December. And the analysis points to, when you reference APT 2829, so the analysis references, this being a nation state level hacker, and everyone is pointing fingers at Russia. Although I don't, why is that? Is that what is there that people have seen here that says this is Russia?
Probably the code had some sort of signature to it. A lot of APTs and a lot of hackers kind of leave a thumbprint, if you will, in their code. And that's how they do attribution. They look at the code, the way it was written, and kind of trace it back that way, as well as what they were after, IPs that it came from. But to be honest with you, it may have been a collaboration of different nation states. It may be more than just Russia. I mean, a lot of people were hit. But I think it goes back to look at the source where it came from. The initial compromise supposedly was FireEye, or they were the ones who found it. And they do a lot of intelligence too. FireEye is a very complex and dynamic group of people. Actually, one of the companies that I used to work for, Eyesight Partners, was actually bought by FireEye.
Yeah.
Um, and I can tell you that they do boots on the ground, physical, human type intelligence as well as cyber. So there may have been some stuff there that they were after, and that was just one of the targets. I don't think that was a door. I don't think that was their main target, obviously.
It seemed weird, didn't it? Because FireEye came out and were like, yeah, our pen testing, our red teaming tools have been stolen, and that, I thought that was a big deal. I'll be honest. I think fuck me. Well, but when it kind of unraveled and they released, the tools and stuff on, and the signatures and all the rest of it, there was nothing really tasty in there. There's no 0 days, nothing worth stealing. That surely a nation state, surely they've got the same capabilities as a red team in FireEye, as good as Mandiant are. But there's nothing really burning new there. So it definitely seemed very strange. And I think to myself, it's a strange thing to do, to go and steal those tools. It's almost as if it was deliberate to make noise to be found.
Yeah.
Right. And I agree with that. But I really think that there was something in that company, whether it be some sort of intelligence that FireEye was doing. You also have to look at who FireEye's clients are.
Exactly.
Which is a lot of government, entities and agencies and contractors. So
Banks,
that was,
as we know.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that was the real meat of the target, was anything critical, infrastructure, banking, government. And that's why I still say that they're in the power grid, they're in the water supply, because all of those places have SolarWinds. I mean, I worked at a company just a couple of years ago in oil and gas, and they had hundreds of oil platforms that relied on SolarWinds. So, you have to look at that and look at all the types of groups it affects and how widespread it was. But I really do think that there's more to it, and we'll see it eventually, whether it's leaked information or the government comes out and says, this is what happened.
I mean, there's so many people like on Twitter feeds and threads that I'm on saying, this is inside job in SolarWinds, and whether, I don't know whether it is or not, obviously. But going back to what you said before about the kind of kill switch side of things, and also the persistence as well, I think you're dead on there. What I really liked, having taken a look at the malware myself, is the kind of modular nature of all of this, which just strikes as like so fucking sophisticated that we've got this. You look at Sunburst, the original backdoor that was talked about. Well, as we know now, that there is a kill switch that FireEye and Microsoft have kind of activated. But Sunburst was the backdoor; it wasn't the end product. And there's the malware. What the fuck they call it? Teardrop, which is the that was the in-memory exploit, whatever, that was dropping Cobalt Strike or something. And then you've got, I think as well, what you mentioned just before around the potential for this to have been a collaboration between nation states. You look at Supernova, which is this web shell, an unsigned binary that's in the the web directory of SolarWinds, that is completely different to Sunburst and Teardrop. It's almost like there's two bad guys in the network here. Two bits of infrastructure going on, but they're all playing the same game at the same time.
And that happens too. I mean, when someone hits a target, groups watch each other as well. So when they see an open door, they're going to jump in as well, and they'll actually fight over territory within systems, which I think is really interesting. We would go at it and remove somebody else's malware and put our own, and it was just back and forth. If you remember back in, I think it was 2004, Netski, the worm was going back and forth, and there was like 20 variants of it within a couple of days, and it was battling malware writers that were trying to knock each other off of that control. So you never know how much of that is actually going on, and we may never know. But I think, like you said, the modular nature of the malware was really interesting, and the fact that At the same time that this was going on, the FBI actually had a program called Nova, where they were taking down Bitcoin fraudsters and stuff like that. And it literally came out the same day. I thought that was really interesting. So may not be a connection, but it was just, the terms that they were using was, kind of going along with the times, I guess.
If I was, and probably have a different mentality, but if I had a foothold in CNI, so critical national infrastructure, so power, water, sewage, X, Y, and Z, why am I burning my foothold? Why am I burning now? Why am I making so much noise when I could have just kept silent and kept unheard for years until someone started sniffing packets and realized this isn't right, or someone realized in SolarWinds that, hold on, these DLLs shouldn't be here. That the hash doesn't match. I just don't get it. Like Colin said, why would you steal some hacking tools which you probably have better tools yourself? Like, it doesn't make sense why you would do that.
Well, it's probably distraction too. It could be one of two things. It could be distraction from the real targets, or the previous, which is, somebody got in and left the door open, and that information was leaked out to another group of people. So they went after what they thought was important. I think the attribution is going to be key, and I think that we're going to see probably more than one group that was carrying out the attack. But people who get into the power grid, it's a unique situation, right? So especially in the US, the infrastructure here is very archaic. We actually have some critical infrastructure that runs off of like Windows NT, like really old architecture. It's not upgraded. A lot of it is just really poorly built, because to reorchestrate that or re-architect it, it would take a lot of manpower, a lot of money, and a lot of systems that would go down, which the US can't handle that type of load. So they sit quietly in those areas, in those networks, and make noise over here on the left, while they're probably deploying tougher, more quieter, more silent malware hooks into critical infrastructure. And that's usually how it is. So I went out and did some red team, blue team stuff at Idaho National Labs years ago when I was with the bank. And some of the techniques that we were learning and some of the stuff that they were telling us made total sense. And some of it was a smoke screen so that you would look over here while they're breaking down pumps on the right. So it's all about distraction and trying to get someone to look the other way.
I mean, this is a very big distraction technique, definitely. It's not just your normal, let's just do a DDoS while we do something else. This is distraction at the highest level, because you've got everyone rolling around looking at looking at malware and writing articles. Do you think this might go back to the initial hacking scandals of 2016?
Man, so I was thinking about that the other day. Kind of made me panic a little bit. I thought, if they trace this back to as far back as 2016, I don't want people knocking on my door again. That makes me kind of nervous. The possibility and the chances are pretty high that this has been going on for years, and we're just seeing the outcome. But it's like I said, it's been a Cold War. If you look at the 70s and look at the spying back and forth between the US and Russia, and all of that has moved to a new threatscape or a new battlefield. And so that war is still going on, that silent war is still going on, but it's taking place in a cyber realm. And that, I don't think that'll ever end.
So when, again, just for the benefit of maybe those who are listening that haven't heard our first episode with you, when we're talking about kind of 2015, 2016 times and how this would, maybe impact you, or people would kind of ask questions of you, that's because at the time you were a confidential informant working for the FBI, but you were undercover in APT 28, which is a Russian APT hacking group. And obviously very focused on the election at the time. And so what we're saying here is we've got a Russian APT threat actor, potentially, allegedly, whatever you want to say, that's compromised this SolarWinds platform. We know it goes back to at least 2019, but given their level of sophistication, the chances are it's going to go back further. And what we don't want to see, and what you're saying, is that you had no involvement in any of this.
Absolutely.
When you were back in the crew, which is great to hear.
Absolutely none. And if I did, I wouldn't admit to it anyway. So
not now, anyway.
Yeah, for the benefit of the tape you're on, I had absolutely nothing to do with it. Yeah, but no. So that's good context. I tell you what, I fucking enjoyed. This is the best piece of malware I've analyzed and handled in a decade, without question. You know, I've loved every minute of looking at this whole situation, and there's more to come, as you say. And you know, I've experienced with SolarWinds. I've seen it in several different organizations. I had a look the other day at there's just a sheer number of DLLs that are involved in that platform. There's fucking hundreds of them. It's crazy. Like to perform analysis on them, I'd be amazed if anyone's been through them all.
No, I'm sure they have. It's pretty complex.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely more to come from this one, without a doubt. What, Ashley, from the vendor space, what do you think, like, if I was a vendor, especially a security vendor, I'd be really worried right now. And I tell you why, where my mindset is here, is because, not because FireEye got popped, you know, that's one thing, but I'm thinking to myself, SolarWinds, that kind of massive platform has been compromised, and everyone, you know, all of the directives that come out from the US government and the National Cybersecurity Centre here in the UK, etc., a lot of the recommendations are all around like EDR technology, deploy EDR, this kind of stuff. You know, you can't legislate for everything that goes on your machine in your server environment. And, you know, you might not be running SolarWinds, you might be running some other system, but guess what? That might have the same problem. So it's not all about inspecting updates and, you know, guaranteeing stuff that you're being delivered. We've got to use a bit of ML, a bit of AI, use an EDR agent. But if I'm a CrowdStrike of the world, if you pop a CrowdStrike, you've got a fucking root on everyone's machine.
Do you know what this is? So I had a conversation with someone on LinkedIn about this, because someone had commented, well, if FireEye can get hacked, what's the point in me spending money in security services? I might as well just leave it until I get hacked and then just claim on the insurance money. And it's like, yeah, you could do that, but it's not about just you. It's about everyone else. If you can deploy the at least one security control, it just slows someone down to the end target. You might not be the end target, like we've seen with Sunburst and sun cream and everything sun. Like we're seeing here, you might not be the end target. If you can slow them down enough to a point where you might trip an alarm, you might have saved 100 customers, 200 customers, whatever, or everyone that you serve. And that was my point of trying to do the best you can with the resources you've got available to yourself. And that doesn't mean spending millions and millions. It could mean just updating Windows Defender, or which Microsoft have gone and deployed, new functionality in Defender to detect for the current situation we're in. But from you are right. There's a little bit of an unrest at the moment in terms of, okay, is 2021 going to be the year of third-party risk analysis, where every single vendor is going to be under, you need to conform to all of these checks and balances, and if you don't, we're not doing business with you, because we need to now start looking at our risk profile. And I don't think it's any different. And I actually think we're going to see some real good from this, that more organizations are going to do more third-party risk analysis and not just trust everything that comes from a vendor's mouth, and actually say, well, do you eat your own dog food? Do you deploy EDR? Do you do this? Do you do that? Just to protect, not to protect yourself, but to actually protect me and my data. But you are right. If a CrowdStrike got popped, well, you might as well just unplug the machine and throw it out the window, because there's nothing, there isn't much you can do then. But you'd hope that CrowdStrike have enough defensive depth to protect the end, the end customer. And I think out of all of this, a conversation I had yesterday was, what's happening at Microsoft? Microsoft are making a lot of noise that they're creating a lot of blogware What are Microsoft so worried about? And I noticed that SolarWinds had a lot of Azure hooks. So looking at one of the products that SolarWinds sells, it has global admin into Azure AD. And what I've seen from discussions, kind of offline discussions with people, is that a lot of customers that didn't have SolarWinds in their environment but had Azure AD have actually been compromised through either third parties looking after Azure licensing or third parties that sold them Azure consultancy but still had the global admin accounts. So yeah, I think there's a lot going on. I think the technology vendor space is probably going to see a little bit of unrest and a lot of change and more due diligence taken. But yeah, I think it's interesting times for next year. But I'm riding that wave, and I'm just taking the positives from it. I think there's going to be some real good change from this, and hopefully, some real change that happens for free. To be honest with you, that's what I'm hoping anyway.
Yeah, it should be free.
Mm.
I think the only thing that saved CrowdStrike was that they didn't use O365.
Yeah,
because that was part of the attack, and they were trying to get into O365. But had that happen, I think it'd be a different world.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting beast. Do you think, like, is that a target for APT groups? These the CrowdStrikes, the FireEyes of the world, these EDR vendors?
I don't think it's EDR vendors. Again, you have to look at who they do work with. So these are commercial companies that have a lot of government ties. It's, if you look at the Department of Defense and even like NSA, some of the tools that they use come from these types of vendors because they're literally a government company, for lack of better terms, because their biggest paychecks come from military and government. So I think that's why we saw those types of firms hit. And I don't think that's going to slow down, because if you can go after a commercial vendor like that who has probably classified information, it's easier to get from them than to go banging on the government's door.
Yeah, I totally agree. I almost have a feeling that the SolarWinds hack was just a pivot point to actually get into Microsoft. But so your theory of two nation states is probably really valid. Group A having, well, we want CNI architecture, and Group B saying, well, we want Azure AD. Because if you had an Azure AD account for, what was it, 80,000 customers or whatever the number is, that's 80,000 phishing kits you don't have to deploy, and you could just one fail swoop, and you've got admin access to tons and tons of customers that you're interested in. And I think that all the articles about, well, the articles I read yesterday was Microsoft was the end target, not FireEye, not whoever we were seeing. It was actually Microsoft, because that was the golden ticket of. I don't think you wouldn't craft such complicated malware to read emails. There's better ways to read emails. But like you said,
I missed that. Was that what was being reported in the news?
Yeah, I think it was Microsoft. A blog came out yesterday or the day before that Microsoft, that they are saying that they were the end target from all the data that they're seeing at the moment. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Misinformation could be ripe here. Who knows? We'll have to get Mike's friends in intelligence to tell us a real story of what's actually being said.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw when they were looking at emails, I thought, that's really strange. But another thing you have to understand too is that Microsoft has a government branch as well. They have a completely different operating system that they sell to NSA, that they sell to intelligence groups. I actually sat in a meeting with the NSA, Microsoft, Secret Service, and the FBI, and a lawyer from the NSA. And they were talking about their relationship, and they were looking at one of the companies I was working with to buy our product. And I got to hear the differences in, let's say, the operating system that people like civilians get and the operating system that the government gets. Completely different. So again, Microsoft holds a lot of information. They biggest operating system on the planet. Why wouldn't you target Microsoft? But being an in target,
but I feel like I don't think it's an end target though, is it? Because it's a means to another end, surely, of like who you actually want to target.
It's another
It's a taxi.
pivot.
Yeah, it's a taxi.
Yeah, a taxi. Yeah, it's a good analogy.
I like that. I've never heard that before. Yeah.
So I guess there's a lot of, as we kind of alluded to before, there's a lot of swell around the whole situation around Russian APT threat actor groups and well publicized with your involvement and relationship there. How has it been for you personally then recently?
So I've seen flashback from it just recently. One of my very good friends, they're filming a documentary next month, and Kaspersky is actually going to be funding it. So one of my colleagues that was going to be in the documentary with me, a really good friend of mine, we go way back, backed out because of the relationship with Kaspersky and the Russian government. And I thought, I get it, I understand it, but again, anything Russian, it's like the big spook in the room. Like everybody's afraid. But I think they get a lot of bad press as well. Anything that happens, they're the first people who are looked at. Just carte blanche. Anything happens in the cyber world, they automatically try to relate it to Russian motivations, whether it be political, whether it be military. But I think they get a bad rap sometimes. I don't think that all of it is to blame on the Russians.
But do you think some of that's a little bit xenophobia and disinformation because it's the easy target? Because everyone, if you are an average American, if you say this was Russia, then you instantly think Cold War. You think all of the horrible things that's happened. So it's easy to say this. But if you said, well, actually, it was a unknown hacking group out of wherever, I don't know, name your country here, that's difficult to start explaining why they would want to do that. I'm surprised no one
from like the Spanish government aren't like
yeah,
they're not front page news for hacking into other territories, are they? But they probably are. Who knows? But
of course, I think it's xenophobia to a certain extent, but you also have to look at the outward vocalization between the two countries and the fact that the military operations that they run. I can't count how many times in 1 year Russians fly nuclear armed jets towards the US over Alaska and have to be chased off. So it's a very outward, silent conflict. And I think that's bled over into cyberspace. It's no different.
Do you think, is there any stretch of the imagination here which suggests that the US would be involved in the SolarWinds compromise?
When I look back at Stuxnet and everybody pointed the finger at Israel, but found out that the US had a lot to do with it. The US is involved in a lot of operations, whether it be cyber operations or, trying to stage a coup in a foreign country. We've been doing that since Cuba. So it wouldn't surprise me if they had some part to play in it. But at this point, it's really hard to tell. I mean, right now it looks like it's geared, it's crafted strictly towards the government. But I don't know. It may shock us all when the truth comes out. Who knows?
I've managed to. Sorry, gosh, go on.
No, I was going to say, do you think this could be the work of a non-nation state, like an anonymous?
No, because when you look at groups like Anonymous and you look at some of the other hacking groups, they have a purpose, right? So it's either financial or like terrorists, they want some sort of impact, whether it be a DDoS or, and they take claim for what they do. There's pure attribution there. Here, it was kind of really quiet. There was nobody jumping up saying, hey, it was me. So it has to be a nation state.
I've managed to veer us off the conversation of how this is affecting you. You were talking about your documentary and the kind of whirlwind that you're in right now. How are things going then?
It's going really well. We actually put together a list of people that are going to be in the documentary. Those people.
What's it focused on? What's the documentary, or how did it come about then?
So I did a podcast with Naveen from Cyber Tree Paradox. last year. I did a couple of them, and we got to be really good friends. And he really liked my story, and he said, we need to get it out to the world. So he asked if he could do the documentary. I said, absolutely. I couldn't pick anybody better to do it. So it's been in the works for quite a while. And there's some other things going on that'll probably be released next year. But so we lined up all the people, got them involved. There's going to be one person from Anonymous that was part of the group back when I was. He was a lot younger. So he's going to be in it. We have another guy who's going to be in it, who's probably top of the world when it comes to web hacking, a really good friend of mine. There's going to be a couple of professionals that I was with during, my journey from, starting out to where I'm at now. People have either helped me in one way or another, or people that worked alongside me. So it's going to be really good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. It'll be good. I mean, there's a lot of ground there to cover, I think, right? So
yeah, that's going to be interesting. I mean, how long is that going to be? 4 hours? Because you've got so much content to go through. Or is it going to be a six-part documentary?
When you posted that online on LinkedIn, it should be a 6-episode documentary. It was actually going to be 6 episodes.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I love it.
I thought that was funny. I thought, does he know something I don't know?
I have no prior knowledge.
Well, don't trust him, Mike. Whatever you
I've got sun cream. I've got sun cream in your infrastructure.
Sun cream,
tanning oil. That's how they got in.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
No, I think it's really interesting, and I think it's going to be cool. I think it'd be really cool to have a documentary about your life, because there's so much going on, and there's so much you've yet to even go through, because it'll just pop into your head when you're talking about a different story that, oh yeah, I did this, and this what happened. But yeah, I think it is interesting to find. What I find really interesting is what's happening now with SolarWinds, how that's affected you, how you've harked back to 2016 and thinking, shit, like, have I got something to play here? And that's crazy, because Colin and I don't have those type of worries to think, oh damn, did I leave that SSH session open? No, we don't have this. We don't have those type of problems.
Not that you know, actually.
And I think it's crazy sad, thrilling that's what you have, but it's your life, and I guess it goes
back to what we originally said, right? That people kind of they love to learn about criminals, don't they? About criminal. I'm not saying you're a criminal, but what I'm saying is about that lifestyle, that kind of activity, the cops and robbers side of things. It's just a fascinating world, especially cybercrime. That people can understand, like the mind of a burglar or an armed robber or what have you. But cybercrime is something a bit different, because it's not as tangible to the normal people of the world, and I think that's where a lot of that fascination comes from. And whilst we, clowns on the outside, we kind of laugh and joke about it. Whereas this is your real life, Mike, right? In terms of the area you were involved in.
I think a lot of times I'll tell people about my past, or they'll look it up online, and I get this kind of like shocking look, and they say, well, that sounds like a movie. And it does. I mean, some of the things I've been through shocked me. But it does read like, a spy thriller novel, or, but to me, it's more like a horror story. So, yeah, I mean, it all plays a part, and, the stuff on the internet never goes away. So I'll never be able to, go into an interview and not have people question me about things that happened in my past. That'll always be there.
Never be deleted.
Right.
So, if COVID didn't happen, X, Y, and Z, and travel restrictions, how are you getting on with papers to exit the country? How's that going?
It's interesting. So I have someone that I can say he was attached to Anonymous, maybe a vocal part, is trying to help me get papers through another country other than the U.S. So that's kind of in the works. Hopefully it'll happen soon. but who knows? The government here is so slow, and the government there in that other country is just as bad. So we'll see what happens. But as far as getting papers here, my chances here are probably pretty small. So
yeah. What are you focused on in the short term then? I feel like you're really enjoying the social media stuff that you're producing, right? The haunted hacker movement, the kind of the LinkedIn posts and stuff like that. I feel like you're really enjoying life right now.
I am. It's given me an opportunity to kind of sit back and collect myself and focus on what I think is most important, which is getting information to people, teaching people, giving them some sort of excitement to get involved with cybersecurity. I'm still messing with RF. I think yesterday I was hacking key fobs for cars. I'm always doing something technical, just trying to stay in the mix and stay sharp. But I think the most important part, like I said, is giving back that knowledge. I have an 11-year-old who gets onto the podcast sometimes. And to see that and to see someone like that excited makes me feel like what I'm doing is worth it.
Yeah, that's really good.
Cool. Yeah, you've got an eclectic mix of people on your podcast. I went on there. I think I'm the most boring person here. I speak to Ryan on LinkedIn. I think, wow, like you're doing so much, and you're pushing, with the certs and the knowledge, and you've got some super big passion behind you. So yeah, I think it's really cool. What you're doing now. And what have you got some speaking engagements coming up soon?
I do. I have one at BCS Hertfordshire.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that's coming up actually next week on the 4th. And then I have Future Cybersecurity Europe virtual conference with me, Frank Abagnale, Brett Johnson is going to be. We're going to do a live session, like a 45-minute session. And there's talks. I had mentioned to Marcus Benson from the conference that maybe we should do like a dual speech with me and Snowden at some point. So there's a lot of stuff on the table, but right now those two are the main ones. And I have some other opportunities, like a radio show that may come to fruition with the super yachting industry. So
what
a lot
topics
of stuff going on.
What topics are you going to be focusing on? Someone asked me this the other day, saying, "Oh, what's your speciality?" And I thought, "Oh, I don't know. I don't have one. I don't have one yet, maybe. Or I've never. Do you know what? I've never actually thought about it. I thought, what is my speciality? And I think, I don't know. Talking shit.
I think my specialty is demasking things, whether it be a system or people or corruption. But my focus now, I think for Hertfordshire, BCS, the talk is working from home post-pandemic. I'm going to take a photo of an office, a home office, and take people on a tour of how to destroy it. Because I think that's a big dilemma right now with companies having people work from home, and they're having to rely on the fact that those home environments are secure, in which 90% of them probably aren't, if not 99%.
This is a very interesting and polarizing topic, because a lot of the vendors, rightly or wrongly, jumped on the bandwagon as extra sales, and that's absolutely fine. VPNs, 2FA tokens, X, Y, and Z, all the really sensible things I understand. I read an article about I think is it in Japan, where they've taken it to a new level, where they've got keyloggers, screenshot software, video camming software to make sure that people are actually doing the work and sat at their desks. So from your perspective, how far do you take it? Do you go Japan far, or controls, like technical controls? What is the important controls you think at the moment?
I think it's just knowledge, employee training. Because if you when you say keyloggers and ways to view the webcam and things like that, the first thing that pops in my head is, wow, that's a playground.
For you.
The more that you deploy, the more you put yourself at risk. Why would you do that? So I think it's more about, hygiene of the network and more cybersecurity training for the employees at a more intensive level. because you're never going to control that environment 100%. So,
yeah, that's very true. Well, listen, Mike, it's been awesome to have you on, the first guest for InfoSec Real. Yet again, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, but still got a lot of pathway to go as well. But I definitely recommend anyone listening to this will check out your socials and the Haunted Hacker movement as well, and to join in your podcast episodes, because they are fascinating, whether they do that live or in retrospect as well. But yeah, thank you again for taking the time with us today, Mike.
thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I always look forward to a conversation with you guys.